I stared at my phone screen, frozen. The message was clear. My wife, Zoe, had texted my brother, "Love you." The timestamp was from just minutes ago. My breathing slowed, but my heartbeat pounded louder with every second. My vision blurred slightly as my thumb scrolled further up the chat. Dozens of messages, private, intimate, playful messages that should have been sent to me, not to Jason. A hollow feeling clawed at my stomach. My wife, my brother, the two people I should never have had to imagine together in this way. And yet, here it was, right in front of my face. As if mocking me, another message appeared right then. "Zoe, dinner's ready, honey. Come downstairs before it gets cold." I stood still for a moment, forcing my face to stay composed. No screaming, no rage, not yet. Sliding the phone into my pocket, I walked down the stairs. The dining room was perfectly set. Candlelight flickered gently. Soft music played in the background, and Zoe smiled warmly as she plated my favorite steak. Across from her, Jason sat comfortably, swirling his glass of wine with a relaxed grin. Zoe looked up at me with a sweet, practiced smile. "Babe, everything okay? You look a little pale." Jason chuckled under his breath, not even trying to hide it. His eyes locked on mine for a brief second, and that smug look said everything he didn't dare say aloud. I sat down, forcing a faint smile. "Just some work stress." "I'm fine." Jason raised his glass toward me. "To family." "To family," I echoed softly, my voice hollow. The knife in my hand sliced through the steak effortlessly, but my grip tightened with each cut. Every bite tasted like metal. Across the table, Jason leaned back, his grin never fading. And Zoe, she kept talking, laughing, pretending as if nothing was wrong. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, subtle, right in front of me. And they were both too comfortable, too sure of themselves. But they had no idea. Not yet. I met Zoe when we were both 20. She was radiant even then. Not the forced kind of beauty people try to achieve, but something natural, effortless. Her long chestnut hair flowed in the breeze that day at the university campus, her eyes shining as if she knew some secret the rest of the world didn't. I was just an engineering student back then, fully focused on my research with little time for romance. But Zoe was different. She approached me first bold, confident, almost fearless. "You're Timothy, right?" she asked one afternoon while I was studying under a tree. I looked up, surprised. "Yeah, do I know you?" "Not yet," she smiled, "but I plan to." That was the start. She was captivating, funny, smart, always knowing exactly what to say. Her confidence had a way of pulling me in before I could even process what was happening. Before long, we were inseparable. While I buried myself in my lab work, she'd bring me coffee, sit beside me with her own textbooks, humming softly as I worked. We were different, but we balanced each other out perfectly. My parents adored her instantly. My mother would say, "She's exactly what you need, Timothy. Someone who brings you out of that serious head of yours." My father agreed, seeing her as the perfect match for the family image. It wasn't long before the talks of marriage began. We got engaged shortly after graduation, and I believed with all my heart that I had won the lottery in life. Jason, my younger brother, was there every step of the way. Unlike me, Jason had always been reckless, charming, but shallow. He was the type who didn't care much for school, instead floating from one business opportunity to another, living off the family name, always chasing thrills. Still, he was my brother. I trusted him. I never imagined he would be capable of betraying me. At family dinners, Zoe and Jason would joke and laugh together, but I thought nothing of it. Jason was naturally flirtatious, but I assumed Zoe saw him as nothing more than my immature brother. I never allowed my mind to wander into darker territory. Love demands trust, and I trusted her completely. As our wedding approached, everything seemed perfect on the surface. Zoe planned every detail with obsessive passion: the dress fittings, the venue scouting, the guest list. She was in full control. Sometimes she seemed more excited about the wedding than the marriage itself, but I dismissed those thoughts as nerves or stress. Our wedding was a grand affair, held at a seaside resort that overlooked crystal blue waters. She looked breathtaking in her gown, walking down the aisle toward me. Her smile was brilliant, her eyes sparkling like the day we met. I remembered thinking, "This is it. This is forever." For the first few years, married life was steady. Zoe decorated our home with a meticulous eye, filling every corner with warmth and life. We went on vacations, hosted elegant parties, attended charity events, everything people expected from a power couple. We were the image of perfection, but as time went on, cracks began to form. Zoe grew distant. The late-night texts, the sudden business trips, the unexplained phone calls she always stepped away to answer. At first, I tried to convince myself it was work-related. She was busy with her growing event planning business, after all. But the unease gnawed at me slowly, quietly. Jason, meanwhile, seemed to always be around. He claimed he was helping Zoe with her business, offering financial advice, making connections, bringing in clients. My parents praised him for finally becoming responsible. I wanted to believe it was true. I didn't want to believe anything else, but there were moments that froze in my mind. One evening, I walked into the living room earlier than expected. Jason was sitting beside Zoe, whispering something into her ear. She laughed, her hand resting briefly on his arm before she noticed me and quickly pulled away. Jason greeted me with his usual wide grin, but for the first time, I saw something else in his eyes. Something darker. "Big bro, you're home early," he said casually. "Yeah, finished work ahead of schedule," I replied, watching them both carefully. Zoe stood up and walked over, giving me a light kiss on the cheek. "We were just talking about a new client. Jason has some really good ideas." I nodded, but the seed of doubt was already planted. Then came the night everything unraveled. I had accidentally seen her phone screen light up when she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I didn't have to. The message flashed plainly for me to see. The sender, Jason. "Miss you already." A chill ran through my entire body. My hand reached for the phone, but I stopped myself. I couldn't confront her like this. I needed proof. Real proof. Confronting her with nothing but a single message wouldn't change anything. She would deny, spin it, make me feel like I was paranoid. Instead, I quietly started gathering evidence. I hired a private investigator, installed discreet monitoring apps, collected screenshots, call logs, location pings. Every piece of data confirmed what I feared most. Their affair had been going on for months, if not longer. Worse, the son I believed was mine, the son I loved, was part of the lie. That's when I decided to take the next step, the DNA test. And that test confirmed everything. Now, as I sat at the dinner table eating the steak Zoe had so lovingly prepared, watching Jason smirk across from me, I kept my face neutral. They thought they had me fooled, but soon they would learn just how wrong they were. The next morning, Zoe was humming in the kitchen, preparing breakfast as if nothing had changed. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. She wore the silk robe I had gifted her on our second anniversary, moving gracefully between the stove and the dining table, eggs sunny side up, just how you like them. She smiled sweetly, placing the plate in front of me. I looked at her, studying every small detail. Her soft voice, her gentle hands, the fake innocence behind her eyes. She was flawless in her performance. Anyone watching would believe she was the perfect wife. "Thanks," I replied quietly. She sat across from me, stirring her coffee. "You seem distracted lately. Everything okay at work?" I forced a small smile. "Everything's fine." She reached across the table, resting her hand on mine. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" The irony almost made me laugh. "Anything except her affair with my brother." I simply nodded, allowing the moment to pass. Timing was everything now. I couldn't afford to confront her prematurely. This wasn't about shouting or screaming. This was about precision, about watching them collapse under the weight of their own lies. Later that afternoon, I called Jason, inviting him to meet at my office. "Hey, big bro," Jason greeted me, strolling in with his usual arrogance. "What's up?" I gestured for him to sit. "Just wanted to have a little brotherly chat." Jason leaned back in the chair, crossing his legs confidently. "Sure thing. What's on your mind?" I slid a sealed envelope across the desk. He picked it up, eyebrows raised, and opened it. His expression shifted immediately as he saw the DNA results inside. The silence was deafening. He looked up slowly, his cocky smirk replaced by a flicker of nervousness. "Where'd you get this?" "I've known for a while," I said calmly. "I just wanted to see how long you'd thought you could keep playing your little game." Jason exhaled sharply, trying to recover his composure. "Look, Tim, it's complicated." "No," I interrupted. "It's simple. You betrayed me. Both of you did." Jason rubbed his temples, forcing out a strained laugh. "Come on, man. You were always so serious. Zoe needs excitement. You buried yourself in your work." She came to me. I stared at him. Voice steady. So, you took what wasn't yours? He leaned forward now, switching to his usual manipulative tone. Tim, it's not what you think. She was lonely. You were distant. She needed someone. You mean she needed you? I asked coldly. Jason shrugged. We never planned for it to happen like this. The audacity in his voice was almost impressive. He still thought there was a chance to justify it, to spin the narrative into something understandable, something forgivable. But there was nothing left to forgive. As I stood up, Jason's voice dropped to a quieter tone. Tim, think about the family. Think about your parents. Do you really want to cause a scandal? Ruin everything? I walked over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. You ruined everything the moment you decided she was worth betraying your own brother. Jason remained silent for a moment before muttering under his breath, I didn't think you'd actually find out. That much was clear. Later that evening, I returned home to find Zoe waiting for me in the living room, her expression unusually tense. We need to talk, she said, her voice shaky. I played along, sitting down opposite her. About what? She hesitated before speaking. I feel like we've grown distant. You've been cold lately. I stared directly into her eyes. Is that what you think? Her fingers nervously fidgeted with the edge of her robe. I love you, Timothy, but sometimes people make mistakes. I let the silence hang in the air. I know everything, Zoe, I said finally, my voice low, her breath caught. What? What do you mean? I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out the folder with all the evidence, the surveillance photos, the chat logs, the hotel receipts, the DNA results. I dropped them one by one onto the coffee table, each piece landing like a hammer. Zoe's face drained of color. This isn't, she stammered. Don't insult me with lies, Zoe, I said sharply. It's all here, every detail. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing watching them. Please, Timothy, it wasn't supposed to be like this. You had a choice, I said. You made it. She reached out toward me, but I stepped back. Don't. Her voice cracked. We can fix this. I love you. No, I said. You loved what I could give you. My name, my status, my money. But you were never really mine. She dropped her head, sobbing quietly, her shoulders shaking. The room filled with the sound of her broken breathing, but my heart remained cold. I had mourned this marriage long before tonight. This was only the beginning. The following days moved in slow motion. I went to work. I attended meetings. I answered phone calls, but none of it felt real anymore. My world was hollow, stripped of its foundation. At night, I sat alone in my study, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. My eyes stayed fixed on the divorce papers sitting on my desk. My signature was the only thing missing, yet my hand wouldn't move. The memories came in waves, drowning me each time. I remembered the first time Zoe said she loved me, the way she looked into my eyes, her voice trembling, her hands warm in mine. I believed every word back then, and now I couldn't tell which of her words had ever been real. Had I been blind all along, or had I simply chosen not to see? The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was how easily they both pretended. How my brother sat across from me, smiling, laughing, toasting to family while tearing mine apart behind my back. I replayed Jason's words in my mind. You buried yourself in your work. She needed someone. As if my dedication was the reason for their betrayal, as if their actions were somehow my fault. My phone buzzed endlessly. Zoe tried calling every few hours. Sometimes she left long, pleading voicemails. Other times she simply whispered, please, Tim, please call me back. I never answered. Jason, on the other hand, had gone completely silent. Coward. On the fourth night, I found myself driving without direction. The city lights blurred outside my window. Every familiar street now felt foreign. My chest was tight, but no tears came. I was beyond tears. I stopped at an old riverside park we used to visit during college, back when Zoe was still pure in my eyes, back when everything felt simple. I sat on the bench, staring at the water. That's when I heard a soft voice behind me. Rough night? I turned. Ela. I hadn't seen her in years. She had studied with us, but we'd never been close. Always distant, reserved, carrying herself with quiet elegance. She looked exactly the same, calm, composed, eyes sharp like she could see straight through me. You could say that, I answered, voice low. She sat beside me, folding her hands neatly on her lap. You don't need to say anything. The whole city's talking. Of course they were. The footage, the scandal, the DNA revelation. Our family names were public property now. Everyone whispered, but no one dared speak to my face. Hila continued softly. Jason always was a snake. And Zoe, well, I guess some people don't value what they have. I stared ahead. I should have seen it. No, she corrected gently. You trusted. That's not weakness. We sat in silence for a while, the cool breeze brushing against us. For the first time in days, I felt the tightness in my chest loosen slightly. You've changed, Timothy, she said suddenly. Back then, you were always so careful, so distant. Now, you're dangerous. I chuckled bitterly. Dangerous, she nodded. Men like you, once broken, they stop fearing loss. And that makes them unstoppable. Her words sat heavy with truth. Maybe I am, I whispered. Hila stood and looked down at me. Don't drown in this. Use it. As she walked away, I watched her disappear into the distance, her words echoing inside me. That night, I returned home to find Zoe waiting outside my door again, sitting on the front steps like a lost child. Her eyes were swollen from crying, makeup smeared. Timothy, her voice broke. I said nothing as I unlocked the door. She followed behind me, desperate. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Please, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I made a mistake. I turned sharply. A mistake. She stepped closer, voice trembling. I love you. No, Zoe. You loved convenience. You loved options. You loved playing both sides. She dropped to her knees, gripping my hand. Please don't leave me. I can't live without you. I pulled my hand free, disgusted. You lived without me just fine while you were with Jason. Her sobs filled the room, echoing against the cold walls, but I stood there unmoved, watching her collapse under the weight of her own guilt. The old Timothy would have broken. The man standing there now was someone else entirely. Later that night, alone again, I poured myself a glass of whiskey. Staring into the amber liquid, I finally signed the divorce papers. The pen glided smoothly across the paper. With every stroke, I felt lighter. I was done mourning. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The following week, I delivered the signed divorce papers to Zoe's lawyer. Legally, she was no longer my wife. The house felt emptier, but not in the way I had feared. It was peace, but peace never lasts long, too. Days later, my father called. My father's voice was sharp, filled with barely controlled rage. Timothy, come to the office. Now. When I arrived, he was already pacing, a folder clutched in his hand. His face was red with anger. Without saying a word, he tossed the folder onto the table. The moment I opened it, my blood ran cold. A lawsuit, filed by Zoe, for what? I asked through clenched teeth. Spousal compensation, emotional distress, and a demand for a share of the company stock. My father spat. She's claiming you abandoned her during the marriage, that you emotionally neglected her. She even fabricated hospital visits and therapy sessions. My jaw tightened. She's desperate. She's greedy, my father corrected. And her lawyer? Jason's old college friend. This isn't just about money. It's revenge, even. After the scandal, after the humiliation and exposure, Zoe still wouldn't let go. She was clawing for more. My father's eyes locked onto mine. We need to shut this down before it spreads. If this goes public, the board will panic. Investors will start asking questions. Let me handle her, I said calmly. I left the office with a single goal in mind. I was going to end this, once and for all. The next day, I arranged to meet Zoe at a private lounge downtown. Neutral ground. She was already there when I arrived, dressed in a tight black dress, trying too hard to look composed. Well, she smiled faintly. Finally agreed to see me. You made it impossible not to, I said, sitting across from her. She leaned forward slightly, voice soft. We don't have to keep fighting like this. Drop the divorce proceedings. We can settle this privately. Quietly. There's nothing to settle, I replied flatly. You have nothing. Her head tilted, her voice almost pitiful. Timothy, I've lost everything. You, the house, my reputation. I need security. Security, I repeated coldly. You lost everything because of your own choices. Her eyes narrowed, the mask slipping. If you push me, I'll push back harder. I still have evidence that can embarrass you. Messages. Recordings. Don't think you're untouchable. I smiled. Finally, you mean the fake recordings Jason helped you create? The ones my investigator already recovered and traced back to his apartment?
Her expression cracked for just a moment. I let you think you were ahead, I continued, my voice low and steady. But I've had everything documented for months. Every call, every payment, every meeting. Her mouth open, but no words came. You want to go to court? I said, good, because when your lies collapse in front of a judge, you won't just lose the case, you'll face perjury charges. Her breathing quickened, her hands trembling. Why are you doing this? She whispered, because you don't get. To destroy people and walk away, I said. I stood to leave, but she grabbed my arm, her voice breaking, desperate. Please, Timothy. I never wanted it to end like this. Jason doesn't care about me anymore. He's already gone. I was stupid. But I still love you. I pulled my arm away gently. You never loved me. You love control. And I walked out, certain it was overgot, or so I thought. That night, Isla called. Her voice calm but urgent. Timothy, turn on the news. I did. And there he was, Jason, a live press conference, standing before a row of reporters. His expression solemn, he said, I regret to inform you that my brother Timothy has been hiding multiple offshore accounts, evading taxes, and misusing company funds for personal gain. I stared at the screen, fists tightening. Jason was launching his final attack. He had failed personally, so now he was coming for me professionally. And I was ready. The moment his press conference aired, chaos exploded. Media headlines screamed. Corporate scandal. Wong family faces tax evasion allegations. Brother turns on brother. Billion-dollar feud. Journalists camped outside my office. Investors flooded the board with calls. Stock prices dipped. My father's voice roared through the phone every hour. You need to fix this before the board takes drastic action. Jason's move was calculated. He knew family honor wasn't just personal. It was business, reputation, survival. If the board lost confidence, everything we built could crumble. But what Jason didn't know was that I had seen this coming. For weeks, my investigator hadn't just been tracking Zoe. He'd been tracking Jason, too. Every meeting, every offshore transfer, every shell company. Jason thought he was untouchable. He wasn't. I called a private emergency board meeting. The air was thick with tension as the directors stared at me grimly. One of the older members finally spoke. Timothy, if these allegations are true, they're not. I cut him off calm. And I have proof. I handed each director a file. Inside, documents, recordings, financial records, everything tying Jason to years of embezzlement, fraudulent transfers, secret payoffs. While Jason was fabricating evidence against me, he was stealing millions from our overseas projects. I said steadily. The room erupted in murmurs. One director's eyes widened as he scanned the wire transfers. Another whispered, unbelievable. This report has already been submitted to federal authorities, I continued. The tax fraud? His. The stolen funds? His. The media circus? His desperate cover-up. Silence fell. Jason's attack was calculated, but sloppy. It ends today. The chairman finally leaned back, exhaling. We'll issue a statement clearing your name. The authorities will handle Jason. As I left, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Timothy. Jason's voice, shaky, strained. We need to talk. There's nothing left to discuss, I said coldly. You think you've won? His voice cracked. You think this is over? It is, I replied. For you. He was breathing hard now, panic seeping through. Come on, man. We're family. You can't do this to me. You stopped being my family the moment you stole my wife, my child, and my name, I said. You want me to go to prison? Lose everything? You lost everything the day you chose betrayal over blood, I answered, and hung up. By the next morning, federal agents arrested Jason. Footage of him in handcuffs was plastered across every channel. Zoe wasn't far behind. Investigators traced payments funneled through Jason's accounts directly to her. She was charged with conspiracy, perjury, obstruction. Her mugshot appeared beside Jason's. The entire city was watching their downfall. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Weeks later, The storm was finally behind me. I could breathe again. Ela never left my side. Her calm, her unwavering support, it anchored me. One night, we sat on my balcony, the city lights glowing beneath us. "You survived," she said softly. I smiled faintly. Barely. She sipped her wine, eyes glinting in the moonlight. "You didn't just survive. You burned the entire chessboard." I looked at her, warmth spreading in my chest. "Couldn't have done it without you." "You could have," she said with a small smile. "You just didn't want to." I chuckled, pulling her close. "Maybe, but I'm grateful you were there." She rested her head on my shoulder. "So, what now?" I exhaled slowly, months of chaos finally lifting. Now, I rebuild. A month later, the rebuilding truly began. My father hosted a private family gathering. Small, away from the public eye dotted dinner, he raised his glass toward me. "You handled yourself like a true leader. You protected this family, the business. You didn't let emotion cloud your judgment." I nodded quietly. "I learned from the best." His expression softened. He glanced at Ela, smiling. "And Ayla, you chose well." She offered a graceful nod. "Thank you, sir." Later, as the night quieted, my father pulled me aside. His voice was serious. "Son, you understand now, don't you? Power isn't just strength. It's knowing who you can trust." I met his gaze. "I know." He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "You're ready to lead." The next morning, Isla and I walked along the quiet beach. The waves crashed softly, the horizon stretching endlessly. And for the first time, I finally spoke the words I had held inside for too long. I had been holding it in for weeks. "Marry." "Me?" Isla froze for a moment, surprised by my sudden directness, but then her lips curved into a soft smile. "You sure?" "I've never been more certain." She looked into my eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "Then, yes." Right there, under the rising sun, I slid the ring onto her finger, feeling the weight of my past dissolve into nothing but distant memories. 6 months later, we were married. Unlike my first marriage, this one wasn't some grand performance. For society, no massive press releases. No influencers posting stage photos. This time it was private, intimate, real. The ceremony was held at a small coastal villa overlooking calm waves as the sun set. Close friends, family, and a few trusted business partners were there, the ones who had stood by me through the storm dot as Ela walked down the aisle in her white gown. Glistening under the golden rays, my chest tightened. But for the first time in years, it wasn't pain I felt, it was peace.
I finally felt safe with someone who never lied. Someone who had seen my worst and never wavered. When she reached me, she whispered, "We made it." I smiled, tightening my grip on her hand. Yes, we did. The ceremony was short, but beautiful. Vows were exchanged with steady voices, rings slid onto fingers, and when I kissed her softly, the applause of a few dozen loved ones filled the air. No cameras, no tabloids, just us. Later, as the guests enjoyed dinner, my father quietly pulled me aside. "The board has voted. The company's full control will officially transfer to you next quarter," he said, his voice steady. I nodded. "Thank you for trusting me. You earned it," he replied. "You kept your head while everyone else was losing theirs. That's what makes a real leader." For years, I had believed leadership meant pleasing everyone. Now I understood it meant protecting the people who mattered, no matter how ruthless. It required you to be. Jason's trial moved fast. The mountain of evidence I provided crushed his defense instantly: money laundering, tax fraud, corporate theft. The charges stacked like dominoes. At the final hearing, Jason tried one last desperate plea. "Timothy, please," he begged from the defendant's table, his voice weak, his once arrogant face hollow. "We're brothers. Blood. You can't let them do this to me." I stood calmly in front of him. "You let greed destroy everything, Jason. You brought this on yourself." His voice cracked. "But prison, you can't leave me in there." I stared at him for a long moment. "You left me for dead the moment you touched my wife." Jason was sentenced to 15 years. As they escorted him out in handcuffs, his eyes stayed locked on mine, silently begging for mercy I would never give. Zoe's fate wasn't much better. With her co-conspirator imprisoned, she lost all legal protection. The court found her guilty of multiple fraud charges, stripping her of nearly every asset she still had. But what destroyed her more than the prison sentence was the public. Once adored for her beauty and social status, Zoe became a national symbol of betrayal. Every news outlet covered her downfall relentlessly. Sponsors cut ties, friends disappeared, business partners abandoned her overnight. She was left to rot in the very spotlight she once craved. At sentencing, Zoe turned to me one last time. "Timothy," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I loved you." I stayed silent. Even then, she still didn't understand love isn't something you fake and manipulate for power. The judge's gavel slammed. 6 years in prison. No parole. As the guards pulled her away, she broke into full sobs. Loud, desperate, almost animalistic. Her screams echoed in the courtroom as I turned and walked out. That chapter was finally closed. Months passed. My name was cleared. The business grew stronger than ever under my leadership. The company stabilized, expanded overseas, and my personal reputation became tied to resilience, strength, and dignity. And through it all, Hila remained steady, calm, and loyal. One evening, as I worked late in my study, she came in and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Still working?" she asked softly. I looked up and smiled. "Just wrapping up paperwork for the Shanghai expansion." She tilted her head. "You've done enough for one day, Mr. CEO. I set the papers aside, stood up, and pulled her into my arms. "I never thought I'd find someone like you." "You didn't find me," she corrected, her eyes sparkling. "I was always right there. You just had to let go of the poison first." She was right. Zoe and Jason had nearly destroyed me, but their betrayal cleared the path for something far better than I ever imagined. "Let's go away for a few days," Hila whispered. "Just you and me. Anywhere you want." I smiled, her lips curved playfully. "How about Paris?" "Perfect," I whispered against her lips before kissing her gently. But before we left, one last piece of news arrived, a letter from Zoe. I recognized her handwriting immediately, even though it had been months since I'd seen it. For a moment, I debated opening it. Part of me wanted no more contact, no more manipulation, but curiosity won. Inside was a single handwritten note. "I never took off my ring, not even in prison. I still dream about you every night. I know I deserve this. I lost everything because of my own stupidity, but I just wanted you to know I never stopped loving you." There was no return address. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the fireplace, watching the flames consume the final remnant of my past. As the paper turned to ash, I whispered to myself, "And I never loved you." Hila walked in just as the last ember faded. She glanced at the fireplace but said nothing. She didn't need to. She already knew. Taking my hand, she smiled softly. "Let's go." That evening, as we stepped onto the private jet, flying toward a new future, I felt lighter than I ever had before. Not because I had won, but because I was finally free.